The rain fell so hard I could barely see the front door. My suitcase sat on the wet porch, my clothes spilling out like someone had ripped it open. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold them still. Behind me, I heard the door slam with a sound that made my stomach drop. Mark stood in the doorway with Clara beside him, her arms crossed like a wall between us. "Elaine, this isn't your home anymore," Mark said. His voice was cold, like I was a stranger. But I wasn't a stranger. I had lived in this house for 3 years. I had tucked his children into bed every single night. I made their breakfast, packed their lunches, helped with their homework, and held them when they were scared. Behind him I heard crying. "Auntie, don't go. Auntie." His son's voice broke something inside me. His daughter was sobbing too. But Mark didn't move. He just closed the door. I stood there in the rain, soaking wet, feeling like my entire world had just disappeared. My name is Elaine Carter, and this was the moment everything changed. It all started a year earlier. I was living a quiet life, working at a local school, spending my weekends with friends. My brother Mark was different from me. He was always chasing something bigger, always dreaming of adventure. One afternoon, he showed up at my apartment with red-rimmed eyes. "Elaine, I'm begging you," he said, sitting at my kitchen table. "Just for a few months. Clara and I need this time. We need to find ourselves. We're thinking about moving to Europe for a while." I didn't understand at first. "What about the kids?" I asked. "That's why I'm here," he said, looking at me with desperate eyes. "We'll be back before school starts. Just watch them for a few months. You're so good with them. Nobody else can do this but you." I loved his children. I had always been close to them. The idea of spending a few months with them seemed wonderful. I didn't think it would last 3 years. The first year with Mark's kids was beautiful. I made the guest room into a bedroom for his oldest daughter, Sarah. His son, Tommy, got the room next to hers. His youngest, Emma, slept in the room across the hall. On the first night, I read them stories and tucked them in just like their parents used to do. But then something unexpected happened. Tommy started calling me Mom. At first, I thought it was just because he missed his real mother. I laughed it off gently. "I'm Auntie Elaine," I would say. But he kept doing it, and soon Sarah and Emma were too. They called me Mom when they were sleepy or scared or hurt. The first time I heard it from Emma's mouth, my heart melted. She had scraped her knee and ran to me crying, "Mommy, it hurts." I held her and cleaned the wound, and for a moment I let myself feel like I was her mother. I should have known this would become a problem. When Mark finally visited during Christmas break, everything changed. He came to pick them up for the holiday, and as I was getting them ready, Tommy ran to him shouting, "Mommy made us pancakes this morning, Daddy." I saw Mark's face go completely still. His jaw clenched, and he looked at me with something I had never seen in his eyes before. Jealousy. Mark and Clara eventually came back from their adventure overseas. They said they had found what they were looking for and were ready to be parents again. I was happy for them, really. I thought they would take over and I could go back to my normal life. But when they walked through my front door, something felt different. Clara looked around my house like she was seeing it for the first time, even though she had visited before. She started moving furniture around immediately. She rearranged the living room, changed the pictures on the walls, and made new rules about everything. She called me the nanny when talking to her friends on the phone. Mark pulled me aside one evening. "You should start thinking about getting your own place," he said quietly. "It's time for the kids to adjust back to normal family life. We need our space." Those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. I had given up 3 years of my life for these children. I had spent my savings on them. I had turned down job opportunities and social events. And now I was being told to leave. The whispers started almost immediately. Clara told our neighbors that I was clingy and too attached to the children. Mark would drop hints at family dinners that I was overstepping and needed to understand my place. The children grew confused. They loved me, but now their parents were making them feel bad for showing it. One night, I overheard Mark talking to Clara in the kitchen. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was just walking down the hallway to get a glass of water. But I heard his voice, harsh and cold. "She's getting too comfortable here. It's creepy. She needs to go," he said. My heart cracked right there in that hallway. Creepy? I had never felt anything creepy about loving these children. I I had only ever wanted the best for them. But now the man I had supported my entire life was calling me creepy for caring about his kids. I went back to bed and cried silently into my pillow. The next morning, I decided it was time to leave before they threw me out. The Last Supper happened on a Thursday night. Clara announced that she wanted family time without me. She said they needed to reconnect as a real family, and my presence was getting in the way. The kids started crying immediately. Sarah hugged me tight. Tommy begged me to stay. Emma grabbed my hand and wouldn't let go. Mark's face turned red with anger. He slammed his fist on the table so hard that the dishes rattled. "You've overstepped enough, Elaine. Get out," he shouted. His voice was so loud and so mean that Emma started sobbing. I looked at the children, their faces streaked with tears, their eyes pleading with me to stay. But I couldn't fight Mark. He was their father. He was my brother. What choice did I have? That night I packed my bags quietly. I folded my clothes, gathered my belongings, and put everything into 2 large suitcases. The children watched from the hallway, tears streaming down their faces. I promised them it would be okay, even though I didn't believe it myself. I gave them each a long hug, and I left their house at midnight. I walked out into the cold night with my suitcases and nothing else. No plan. No place to go. Just the bitter taste of betrayal in my mouth. The kids watched me from the window as I walked away down the dark street, their small faces pressed against the glass. I was so angry at Mark that night. I was furious at Clara. I was heartbroken over the children, but deep inside, underneath all that pain, something else started to grow. A fire. A determination. I whispered to myself as I walked through the rain, "They will regret this. They will regret what they did to me." I didn't know how or when, but I knew that somehow, someday Mark would understand what he had done. He would see what he had thrown away, and he would wish with his whole heart that he could take it back. For now, though, I was just a woman with 2 suitcases, walking alone through the darkness, trying to figure out how to survive. But I made a promise to myself that night. I would not let this break me. I would survive this. I would rebuild. And I would become stronger than I had ever been before. I crashed on my friend Jessica's couch for the first 2 weeks. She was kind and didn't ask too many questions, but I could see the pity in her eyes. I had given up everything for Mark's children. My savings were nearly gone. I had spent money on their clothes, their schooling, their activities. I had invested my whole life in them, and now I had nothing. The first few days were the hardest. I couldn't stop crying. I would wake up in the middle of the night, my heart racing, wondering if I had made a terrible mistake by leaving. Maybe I should have just apologized to Clara. Maybe I should have done things differently. Maybe I should have been less affectionate with the kids. Then one morning I found something in my bag that broke me completely and rebuilt me at the same time. It was a drawing from Emma. On white construction paper she had drawn stick figures holding hands. There was me tall and smiling. There were the 3 kids all holding my hand. And at the top in her shaky handwriting she had written, "I love you, Mommy Lane." I sat on Jessica's couch and cried harder than I had ever cried in my life. But these tears were different. They were tears of love, not just pain. They reminded me why I had done everything I had done. I had done it for them. And that was enough. That had to be enough. After a week on Jessica's couch, I decided something had to change. I couldn't spend the rest of my life being destroyed by what Mark had done. I had to rebuild. I had to become stronger. I had to show not just Mark and Clara but myself that I was worth more than this. I enrolled in a night course in early childhood education. It was funny because I had been doing this work naturally for 3 years without any official training. Everything I knew about caring for children came from experience and love. But now I would have a certificate to prove it. Now I would have credentials. I studied during the day and worked odd jobs at night to pay for the course. I was exhausted most of the time, but it felt good to be moving forward. Every page I read felt like I was taking back my power. Every test I passed felt like I was proving something to myself. By the time I finished the course 3 months later, I had something Mark could never take away from me. Education, training, experience, skills. These things were mine, and they would open doors that had nothing to do with my brother or his children. My first real job after finishing my course was at a local daycare called Sunshine Kids Academy. The director, Mrs. Patterson, hired me immediately after my interview. She said she had never seen anyone with more natural compassion for children. She told me I was exactly what her daycare needed. The parents loved me right away. They said I treated their children like they were my own. I was patient, kind, and creative. I made learning fun. I noticed when something was wrong with a child, even if they couldn't express it in words. Within 3 months, Mrs. Patterson promoted me to supervisor. With this new job came a new paycheck. It wasn't a lot, but it was more than I had ever made before. More importantly, it was mine. I had earned it. Nobody had given it to me, and nobody could take it away. Every dollar I made felt like a victory over my pain. I started saving money. I put aside $50 every week. It wasn't much, but it added up. I had a plan now. I was going to buy my own house. A small one with a garden. A place that was completely mine. A place where I would never depend on anyone again. About 8 months after I left Mark's house, I started hearing rumors. Mutual friends would mention things casually like they were just making conversation. But I could read between the lines. Mark and Clara's marriage wasn't doing well. The children were struggling in school. Mark was drinking more than he used to. I felt something complicated when I heard these things. Part of me felt a small sense of satisfaction. He had treated me terribly, and now he was suffering consequences. But another part of me felt sad. I still cared about him even after everything. And I knew the kids were probably confused and hurting. One friend told me that the kids were asking about me all the time. They wanted to know where I had gone and why I hadn't come to see them. Mark had told them I had decided to leave, that I wanted to move on with my life. He had rewritten the story to make himself look good. But I didn't reach out. Not yet. The wound was still too fresh. I was still healing. I needed time before I could see them again without falling apart. So I focused on my own life and my own healing. On my birthday, about 10 months after leaving Mark's house, I got a text message. My hands actually shook when I saw who it was from. It was Sarah, Mark's oldest daughter. She had gotten a phone somehow and figured out how to text me. "I miss you," the message said. "Dad doesn't let us call. But I just wanted to say happy birthday. And I love you." I sat in my office during my lunch break and cried. Real tears. Not angry tears or sad tears, but the kind of tears you cry when your heart is full of conflicting emotions. I missed her too. I missed all of them. But I couldn't go back. Not yet. Not until I was stronger. I didn't reply to the text. I knew I should have, but I wasn't ready. If I texted her back, it would open a door that I wasn't prepared to walk through. So I saved her message and I read it every night before bed. Kept me going. It reminded me why I had fought so hard to rebuild my life. Because someday I would be strong enough to be there for them again. Around the same time that Sarah texted me, there was a family event. Someone invited everyone in the extended family to a big dinner. I didn't go. I wasn't ready to see Mark and Clara face to face. But one of my cousins told me what happened. Clara had a complete meltdown. Apparently, she had screamed at everyone that she had given up everything for those kids and gotten nothing back. She said she felt invisible and unappreciated. She yelled that nobody understood how hard she worked. Mark had gotten so angry at her that he stormed out in the middle of dinner and left her there alone. My cousin said the whole room went silent. Everyone was embarrassed and uncomfortable. Clara was crying and yelling while Mark was gone, and the kids didn't know what to do. That was the first moment I realized that Mark's marriage was actually falling apart. I didn't feel happy about it. Instead, I felt something more complicated. I felt like I was watching something I couldn't stop. Mark had thrown me out to make his wife happy. And now his wife was falling apart anyway. All that pain he had caused, all those choices he had made, and it hadn't even helped him keep his family together. 11 months after I left Mark's house, something amazing happened at work. The private academy across town had heard about me. They offered me a job as their lead child development specialist. The pay was double what I was making at the daycare. They said they had heard incredible things about my work and my dedication to children. I said yes immediately. This was it. This was the moment I had been working toward. This was proof that I could succeed on my own terms, without Mark's help, without anyone's help but my own. I had taken my pain and transformed it into purpose. I had taken my heartbreak and transformed it into education and skill. My friends threw me a small celebration dinner. Jessica hugged me and said she was proud of me. My coworkers at the daycare gave me gifts and told me how much I had meant to them. And for the first time since leaving Mark's house, I felt like I could breathe freely. I felt like I was going to be okay. More than okay. I was going to be great. With my new job came my dream. I found a small yellow house for sale in a quiet neighborhood. It had a big backyard and room for a garden. It wasn't fancy or expensive, but it was mine. I worked with a bank and got a small mortgage. The day I got the keys, I sat down on the floor of my empty living room and cried. Not from sadness, but from pure joy and accomplishment. I spent the first weekend planting a garden. I bought 3 small trees from the local nursery. I planted them in a row in the backyard, and I gave each one a name. Sarah, Tommy, Emma. Every morning before work and every evening after work, I would water those trees. I would whisper their names and tell them that I loved them. It might have seemed strange to other people, but for me it was a way of staying connected to them while still protecting my own heart. Those trees represented my hope that someday I would see them again. Someday they would understand what had happened and why I had to leave. Someday we could have a relationship that wasn't built on pain. I hung pictures on my walls. I decorated my kitchen. I made my house a home. For the first time in years, I had a place that was completely mine. A place where I was safe. A place where I made the rules. Exactly 1 year and 3 months after Mark had thrown me out onto the porch, something unexpected happened. I was sitting in my backyard on a Sunday evening, watering my trees, when I heard a car pull up outside my house. I didn't recognize the sound of the engine, so I walked around to the front. A teenage girl was getting out of the car. First, I didn't recognize her. Then she looked at me and my breath caught. It was Sarah. She had grown so much in just over a year. She was taller now and older looking, but her eyes were the same eyes I remembered. "Elaine," she said, and then she started running toward me. She was crying. "Elaine." We didn't know where to go. Dad left. Mom's gone. I didn't know what to do, so I remembered where you lived. I remembered the address from the accident report. I held her while she sobbed into my shoulder. She was shaking and scared and confused. She told me that their parents had been fighting constantly. Clara had finally packed her bags and left. Mark had basically abandoned them in the house, going out drinking and staying gone for hours. Sarah, now 14 years old and frightened, had called some friends until she found out who knew where I lived. She had convinced a neighbor to drive her to my house. She had nowhere else to go. She only knew one place where she felt safe. With me. While Sarah was still crying in my arms, my phone rang. I looked down and saw Mark's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer it, but I did. I held the phone to my ear and waited. "Elaine." Mark's voice was shaking. "Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Can we talk? Sarah's missing. I don't know where she is. I'm losing my mind." I stood there in my driveway, holding his 14-year-old daughter who was sobbing in my arms, and I heard desperation in my brother's voice for the first time. He didn't know she was safe. He didn't know she was with me. He was probably panicking, wondering if something terrible had happened to her. But I was calm. I was quiet. I said, "Sarah's here. She's safe." She came to me. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then Mark said, "Thank God. Thank God. Can I come get her? Can we talk? Please, Elaine, I need to see you." I looked at Sarah, still holding on to me like I was the only thing keeping her afloat. I said, "We'll talk. But not tonight. Tomorrow. Come in the morning." Mark showed up at my house the next morning at 6 o'clock. I was already awake. I had barely slept. Sarah was sleeping on my couch, finally peaceful after being awake most of the night, just needing to know that she was safe and that I was there. I opened the front door and barely recognized my brother. He looked like a ghost of himself. He was pale and hollow-eyed. His clothes were wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. He was holding flowers which seemed ridiculous and pathetic at the same time. "Hi," he said, and his voice cracked. "I'm sorry I'm so early. I just couldn't wait anymore." I didn't invite him in. I stood at the gate between my driveway and the front porch, and I didn't move. I looked at him with clear eyes, seeing him the way I had learned to see him. Not as the big brother I had idolized. Not as the man I had sacrificed everything for. Just as another human being who had made terrible choices. "What do you want, Mark?" I asked. His eyes filled with tears. I lost everything, Elaine. Clara left me. The kids blame me. I'm alone and I don't know what to do. I made terrible mistakes. I see it now. I see it all. I listened to Mark's words from behind my gate, and I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction. Just emptiness. He had broken me so completely that I didn't even know how to feel anymore. He stood there in my driveway, crying and apologizing, and I realized something important. His pain didn't make my pain go away. His regret didn't change what had happened. His tears didn't give me back the 3 years I had lost. You didn't lose me, Mark, I said quietly. You threw me away. And that was your choice to make. But you can't undo it now. Mark crumbled. He sank down onto the steps of my porch and put his face in his hands. He sobbed like I had never seen a man sob before. His whole body shook with it. And I stood there watching, feeling nothing except a deep kind of exhaustion. Sarah came to the door behind me. She put her hand on my shoulder. Is that Dad? She asked. Yes, I said. It's your dad. Sarah went past me and sat next to Mark on the steps. She was 14 years old, and she was comforting her broken father. I watched them, and I felt the weight of everything that had happened crash down on me all at once. Over the next few days, I had to make difficult choices. Friends told me to slam the door in Mark's face. They told me he deserved to suffer the way he had made me suffer. They told me it was time for revenge, real revenge, the kind that would teach him a lesson he would never forget. But I knew that revenge wasn't going to help me. Revenge would only tie me to Mark forever. It would keep me connected to my pain. And I had worked too hard to move past that. So instead, I offered him something else. I invited Mark to sit at my kitchen table and have a meal with me and Sarah. Not forgiveness. That would take time. But a beginning. A place to start. We ate in mostly silence, and then I told Mark very clearly what was going to happen. He could see Sarah and Tommy and Emma, but only if he got help. Only if he went to counseling and to meetings for his drinking. Only if he worked on being a better person and a better father. And he could only see them at my house, where I could see that they were safe and that he was treating them right. Mark agreed to everything. He had no choice. He had lost everything else. His wife was gone. His job was in danger because of his drinking. And his children only wanted to be with me. I was his last chance. The next several months were strange and complicated. Mark did what I asked. He went to counseling. He went to meetings. He slowly started to get his life back together. But he did it slowly, step by step, day by day. It wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't a miracle. It was just hard work. Sarah and Tommy started visiting me on weekends. Emma was still with Mark during the week, since she was only 7 and needed stability at school. But on Fridays she would come stay with me. The kids would call me Mom openly now, with no shame and no confusion. Mark watched them do it and I could see the pain in his eyes. But it wasn't cruel pain. It was the pain of understanding what he had lost by his own choices. We would spend weekends together in my house. I would make their favorite foods. We would sit in the backyard and I would show them the 3 trees I had planted with their names on them. The trees had grown so much in just over a year. Sarah laughed when she realized what I had done. You planted trees for us? She asked. I did, I said. Every morning I watered them and said your names. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 second. She hugged me so hard that I could barely breathe. And in that moment I realized that all the pain I had gone through had been worth it because it had led to this. To heal. To real love, not desperate need but actual love. About 6 months after Sarah showed up at my house, there was another family gathering. This time I went. Mark called me and asked if I would come and I said yes. I wasn't ready to forgive him completely, but I was ready to move forward. At the dinner table, surrounded by aunts and uncles and cousins, Mark suddenly stood up. The whole table went quiet. I thought something was wrong. But Mark looked at me and he started to speak. I need to say something, he said. I need to apologize to someone very important. Elaine Carter is the strongest person I know. She took care of my children for 3 years when I was too selfish and too broken to do it myself. She sacrificed her own life for my family. And I repaid her by throwing her out of my house like she was garbage. I was wrong. I am deeply sorry. Elaine was the real parent to my children. I owe her everything. Everyone at the table was staring at me. I felt tears streaming down my face. I didn't plan to cry. Just happened. Mark's words didn't fix anything that had happened, but they meant something. They meant that he understood. He finally truly understood. After that dinner, things began to shift more significantly. Clara had actually left Mark for good. She had moved to another city and started a new life. She didn't want contact with him or the children. She had basically disappeared from all their lives. Mark was becoming more stable, more present, more like the brother I had known before everything went wrong. But he was also different now. He was humbler. He was kinder. He treated me with respect and gratitude that hadn't been there before. One afternoon he came to pick up the kids, and he said something that surprised me. "I've been thinking," he said, "about you adopting the kids." I looked at him in shock. "What?" "I'm serious," Mark said. "I know I haven't been the best father, and I still want to be in their lives. But legally, formally, I think you should adopt them. They call you Mom. You've been their real mother. I want it to be official." It took several months and a lot of legal paperwork, but it happened. After 18 months of slowly rebuilding, of healing, of learning to trust again, I officially adopted Sarah, Tommy, and Emma. Mark didn't fight me. He cooperated fully with the court. He wanted his children to be legally mine. The day the judge signed the papers, I felt something release inside my chest. A weight I had been carrying for years just lifted away. These children were officially mine. Not because of love or sacrifice, but because the law said so. Because it was official. Because it was real. I took them home to my little yellow house and threw a celebration. I made their favorite foods. I hung streamers and balloons. We danced in the living room and laughed until our sides hurt. Sarah hugged me and said, "Thank you for never giving up on us, Mom." My house was full of laughter and light. The emptiness I had felt for so long was completely gone. I had rebuilt my life from nothing. I had transformed pain into purpose. And I had gained a family that was completely and totally mine. Exactly 2 years after Mark threw me out onto that rainy porch, he came to visit again. He pulled up in his car early in the morning on a Saturday. He looked healthier now. He had gained weight back. His eyes were clearer. He was still my broken brother, but he was getting better. I met him at the gate, the same gate where he had stood a year and a half earlier, begging for help. This time was different. This time he was just visiting. This time he wasn't desperate. He was calm and peaceful. "I just wanted to thank you," he said, "for everything. For saving my kids. For saving me. For giving me a chance to be better." I smiled. I looked at this man who had destroyed me and been rebuilt by me, and I didn't feel anger anymore. I just felt tired. Tired and at peace. "You're welcome," I said. He gave me a hug, and then he went inside to spend time with Sarah and Tommy and Emma. I closed the gate gently behind him. Not to shut him out, but to close that chapter of my life forever. Some people teach you what love is. Some people teach you what loss feels like. My brother taught me both, and I survived. I am stronger now than I have ever been. And I am home.